Murder in the morning from the Hidden Killers podcast.
Well, today we're going to revisit the Colorado funeral home that had the 190 decomposing bodies discovered in it, because they're in court now. We've been covering this one for a little while since it came out earlier in the year. Relatives who believe their loved ones may have been among the 190 decomposing bodies discovered at the Return to Nature funeral home watched as the owners, Jon and Carie Hallford, appeared before a jury to face a litany of disturbing charges. The Colorado Springs-based funeral home's facility in Penrose, a quiet Rocky Mountain town, became the epicenter of this unprecedented scandal. And it's left a lot of people in turmoil, accused of abusing corpses, theft, money laundering, forgery. The Hallfords stood in orange jail clothes and handcuffs, remaining silent during a brief court hearing. The revelations surrounding the funeral home have sent shockwaves, of course, through that community. The disturbing discovery unfolded when investigators unearthed dozens of stacked bodies at the facility, with some dating as far back as 2019.
Oh,
according
God,
to federal
the smell.
affidavits. I mean, how does this get this bad? Families who entrusted their loved ones to the funeral home were told that their relatives had been cremated, but the court records allege that they received substitute materials, not their loved ones' ashes. Why are you holding on to the bodies?
Remember, this was the cement.
Yes.
They received that powder cement.
But why did they hold on to the bodies? What are they? They weren't organ harvesting, were they? I don't think
It's a good question, but you'd have to do that right away.
Yeah, I mean, just letting them rot just seems like you're lazy. Just seems like you got something going on. You're like depressed. I don't feel like doing the cremations today. Put some more of that Quikrete in those urns. You know, I don't know. Heather DeWolf.
You just have to put the bodies in the furnace and be done with it. I mean, I could see if they were not tracking them really well and just tossing them in the furnace and, oops, we mixed, 4 people's ashes together. Sorry, here we think this is your loved one. I can see that, but no, they're like, screw it. We're just not going to fire it up today.
Like you had one job. Burn the body, give them the ashes, collect the money. That's all you got to do. It's not...
And you don't have to do anything. You put the body in the furnace, you close the door, you set the temperature, and you walk away for a couple hours. There's nothing else for you to do.
Stacy knows this because she has now opened Stacy Cole Cremations, where you can now... She got it on eBay, a cremating oven. She makes lovely wood-fired pizzas, and she can give you a heck of a deal on cremating your loved ones.
Oh, well, as you know, for like a year and a half, I worked in the euthanasia business for the veterinary field. And I've toured a crematorium that dealt with animals only. It was strictly animal only. But they were extremely professional. Yeah. Every single stop that body made was barcoded and scanned. So they knew exactly where that pet was at any given time, whether they were in the freezer or headed to the furnace or the ashes were done and they were being packaged. You knew exactly where that animal was. So if we can do this for animals, and we do every day, they can do this for people.
Isn't it an option when you have it probably depends on the place, but isn't it an option with people or with the animals rather, to like, if you want an exclusive burning, like
it's called a private cremation.
You get a private one. If not, you kind of get Arthie and Snuggles and whoever you get a little bit of everybody.
Most places, if you do the community or communal group cremation where it's a cheaper option and you have several animals that are cremated at once, typically you don't get those ashes returned to you because it's kind of a privacy thing. You're getting somebody else's animal and that's not what they want to do. Some places might do it, but for the most part, the places that I've worked with, if you're opting for the group cremation, you won't get ashes back.
It's just kind of like, okay, they paid us to cremate the animals and now we're doing that. And then what do they do with it? Just dispose of the ashes at that point?
Yeah. And the place that I worked with, they went and disposed of them at a really nice farm field north of town. And it was beautiful because I know they actually did it. It wasn't, we're going to do that. They didn't end up in a dumpster. They literally took them in buckets and poured them out on a farm field.
Oh, so then it kind of goes back to nature and helping life again. Yeah, that's
like a return to nature. I mean, so they do it for animals, and then these horrible people were like, screw it, we don't need to.
They couldn't
honor
even
these bodies.
They couldn't even shut the oven Heather
Nope.
DeWolf, a grieving mother, attended the hearing and held up a photo of her late son, Zach DeWolf, who passed away at the age of 33 in 2020. Return to Nature had handled her son's remains, and she expressed her profound grief and disbelief. I don't view them honestly as human at this point, saying, I don't believe a human could do this. She recalled the heartbreaking moment she rocked a container, thinking it was her son's ashes, only to question its contents now. While the FBI has privately told many families that their loved ones were among the decaying bodies, the full extent of how the bodies were mishandled remains unknown to the public. Defense attorneys have objected to the unsealing of affidavits, and the decision on whether to make them public awaits a future judge's ruling. I think it probably should be kind of public. It's kind of... Yeah. The EPA has announced plans to demolish the Return to Nature funeral home in Colorado, where authorities uncovered the nearly 200 decaying bodies. What does this building look like? I'm kind of curious.
It's in horrible disrepair. There's a hearse out back. There's like tumbleweeds. I mean, it looks bad. I looked it up before this story. It's terrible. There's like a broken down hearse in the back.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good. And I'm looking it up right now. There's like boarded up windows. There's maybe shelving in back that's like crooked, laying against the building. There's literally a tumbleweed against the building. There's weeds growing on the parking lot.
There's a picture here of Jon Hallford, who was featured in a 2017 Gazette story about Return to Nature funeral home that I'm looking at from the Gazette. I'm assuming it's like their local newspaper. And they have there's a casket, but it's made out of wicker.
Ew.
Yeah. And it's like a viewing room. It's like there's a picture of California redwoods with some framing around. I mean, it looks very like cheesy as hell. Oh my God. Wow. Yeah. Well,
I'm all for the concept of Return to Nature because we inject human bodies with horrific chemicals that are ultimately not going to be good for the earth in the long run. But what they were doing was, fuck it. It's not okay.
No, I mean, didn't they get the questioning came in when the smell started getting bad, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Neighbors were like, what is this stench?
Yeah.
He was trying to pass it off as taxidermy.
Oh, yeah. He was doing taxidermy there, too.
Yeah.
That what makes it even weirder.
Which is maybe why they don't want to open up the affidavits, because maybe there's something in there that we don't want to know.
Do you want to? Oh, God. Well, I think everyone should know, probably. It's pretty bad when the EPA is the one that steps in and says, we're taking your building down. Initially, the Fremont County Department of Public Health and Environment declared the funeral home a public health risk. Now the EPA is stepping in to address the hazardous situation. The agency had scheduled an evaluation of the property in mid-November, but the decision to demolish the building in January 24 was announced last week. The goal is to remove biological and hazardous materials discovered within the structure safely. God. The Hallfords were arrested in Oklahoma, where they'd allegedly fled to avoid prosecution. They're currently in police custody, held on $2 million bond each, and face numerous charges, including about 190 counts of abuse of a corpse, theft, money laundering, and forgery. Jon Hallford is represented by the state's defender's office, which has declined to comment on the case. Carie Hallford is being represented by attorney Michael Stunzinski or something. Stuzzy? I don't know. Stuzzing?
Yeah.
Stazinski? Is it Stazinski? Stazinski?
I don't know.
I
think it's weird, though.
We'll go with
married.
Stazinski. Yeah.
They're married, and he gets the public defender. She gets a private attorney. What's that about? Did they just do a coin toss?
I'm going to guess.
We can only afford one.
I'm going to guess maybe there's going to be a little flipping of one person on the other in this. Mm-hmm. It's funny, you look at them and they look like a pretty normal couple. Like, they don't look like, folks that you were doing something like this. I don't know what that would look like, but I guess I picture more monstrous type humans. It's just like somebody that'll be in front of you at the Kroger checking out. Like, just no, I don't know. I don't get what they did. God. In the aftermath of the Grimmon discovery, authorities have been working to identify the remains. Various methods, including fingerprints, dental records, medical hardware, and DNA are being employed to establish the identities of those affected. The shocking revelations have raised questions about the practices of the Return to Nature funeral home, which offered cremations and green burials without embalming fluids. The company was founded in 2017. It faced numerous financial crises, including missed tax payments, eviction notices, and lawsuits from suppliers. When state officials reached out to Jon Hallford after receiving report of a foul odor, he admitted to having a problem at the site and claimed to practice taxidermy there, according to an order dated October 5th. However, the extent of the problem and the circumstances surrounding the body's mishandling have yet to be fully disclosed to the public. See, I think there's something else going on here.
Yeah, I think there is too. And I just want to point something out. And I love Pizza Hut.
I don't know how we're tying Pizza Hut into this. It kind of looks like an old Pizza Hut.
Does it? Yeah, I'm looking at the building and I've got a different view of it. The roof looks like it's a former Pizza Hut.
I don't think it is. I just think it's kind of that style of architecture in that area of Colorado. Okay. I was going to say Chinese restaurant at first, but yeah, it does look more like a Pizza Hut the more I look at it. But I'd say the architecture is more of a Chinese, like a traditional type Chinese restaurant. If you put like some of the, like what you think of like in a 1980s Chinese restaurant, the stuff around there, I think it would look a lot like that.
I can get behind that. Yeah. But the shape of the roof to me it's just, I don't want to say stinks of Pizza Hut because that's not the right terminology for the story. But to me, it just was like, that's a Pizza Hut.
And they're using the pizza ovens didn't quite get up to temperature. That's been the problem the whole time. They thought they had something there.
It would be wired for that, though, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I mean, there'd certainly be gas, I would think. Although there's 190 bodies stacking up, so maybe not too well. The FBI's involvement intensified when Jon Hallford ceased using his phone on the day of the funeral home search, leading authorities to believe that he was attempting to evade law enforcement. The subsequent tracking of Carie Hallford's phone to Oklahoma led to the discovery of Jon Hallford's car at his parents' residence.
See? And you can always be tracked.
Insurance of a federal court warrant for the couple's arrest. Yeah, I mean, the taxidermy thing is weird. 190 bodies stacking up in your place of business is beyond weird. And you going into work there on a daily basis is also... it's almost not human as it was described by one of the victims' families. Seriously, like human being, like, how do you survive going into work there? Wouldn't that be such a toxic environment that you would like die from the fumes?
You would think so.
Because that is extremely toxic to be inhaling that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the smell of rotting corpses and rotting bodies, it would be overwhelming. So I'm curious as to how they put up with it, how they could continue to even bring in bodies, even like after the fourth one, because 190 is going to smell horrific. 4 will smell horrific. Even 1. How did they do this?
I don't even know. I mean, it's like, it's evil. It's monstrous. It really is monstrous. And they weren't.
I just wonder if they were dressed in hazmat, and at that point they'd have to know that they were doing something wrong, because funeral workers don't dress in hazmat suits. They wear protective gear when they're embalming, but they're not in a hazmat suit.
Well, and it's not like if it was. I mean, a lot of this did happen during COVID, but it's not like your N4 masks or whatever are going to protect you from this.
No, not the smell. You can still smell through respirators and things like that. I mean, obviously, if you're dealing with a really diseased body, you might wear a hazmat, but you'd be able to walk into the facility, without wearing a hazmat suit. So it's something I would love to have them unseal the affidavits on this. I want to see what was going on.
I think something very, very dark was going on beyond just collecting 190 bodies. I don't know what. I don't know that I want to predict. Do you have any predictions as to what was going on here that we don't know about yet?
John Oliver on HBO he did a story this last weekend about organ donation, and it reminded me of the story that we had done, people selling body parts.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, was that going on? Because it seems like there is a prolific market out there where people can sell parts of bodies.
There is. I would think we would already know about that, though, in this case. If you have was that the intent initially, and then it just really got out of hand, and it's like, we can't keep up with the bodies, and the furnace isn't working I don't know. Like,
it's a good question.
What was the intent here, other than you didn't feel like cremating 190 bodies. Like there has to be some reason why you would do this.
I could see getting behind by a week or so, or maybe, it's been hard to find workers. Maybe the bodies started piling up and you just couldn't keep up. But then you don't bring on more until you get yourself caught up. So something nefarious had to be going on here, that they were able to accumulate that many bodies without doing their job. I don't think we're just dealing with laziness here.
I also got 190 bodies. It's not like 190 bodies came into their business one day.
Right. This was over several years,
so
right?
People are going to this funeral home on a regular basis to use their services. Well, where were they meeting with their clients then? I mean, to make the transaction. I mean, I would think if you're not allowed to go to the actual funeral home, that'd be a big red flag, number one. Unless these are, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was just a bunch of bodies that like nobody accounted for, that just, they got him at the morgue, and it's like, well, let's send him to the funeral home. I don't know. I mean, there's a huge chunk of this story that's missing that needs to be unsealed to find out what was going on. The public deserves to know. This is going on in their community. The victims deserve to know what the hell was actually happening here. Because I think it goes beyond, we're just too lazy. I don't know what that is, but it's going to make for a great Netflix series someday.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial-free,
so you can binge on true crime
until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.